In a small English town, tucked between green fields and quiet roads, stood a modest house on a hill. Its windows caught the morning light like open eyes, and every Sunday the sound of children's laughter floated from its garden. Two little girls, Joanna and Jacqueline Pollock. Joanna was bright and curious, 8 years old, with a quick smile and a habit of mothering her younger sister. Jacqueline, 6, followed everywhere, her small hand always reaching for her sister's sleeve. They were different, yet bound by that invisible thread that ties siblings who truly see each other. Their parents, John and Florence, watched them with ordinary happiness, that fragile, everyday miracle of family life that seems eternal, until one morning it isn't. It was a Sunday in 1957, the morning of Palm Sunday. Florence dressed the girls for church. The smell of breakfast lingered in the kitchen. The girls argued gently over who would carry the small wicker purse. John kissed them goodbye at the door. He remembered that Jacqueline had scribbled a line on the back of her hand that morning, a small line of ink from a pen she'd been playing with, a faint birthmark already marked that same spot, shaped like a smudge of paint. It had always seemed oddly deliberate, like a signature. As they walked down the familiar road toward church, a car lost control. A woman, distraught, swerved across the street. In an instant, both girls were gone. The silence afterward was unbearable. The house on the hill lost its sound. No laughter, no footsteps, only the ticking of the kitchen clock. John and Florence moved through the weeks that followed like shadows, breathing, eating, talking, but hollowed. Florence tried to pray. John tried to work. Neither could escape the echo of small voices that weren't there. Months passed, then years. The seasons turned with cruel indifference, but John could not let go. He had always been a man of faith, not only in God, but in the strange possibilities of existence. He began to dream of the girls, vivid dreams where they laughed, played, and called his name from places he couldn't reach. One night, he woke and told Florence, "They're coming back." She thought grief was speaking through him, but he was certain. He said he felt it, not hope, but knowledge, that their souls would return. Florence wanted to believe, but the wound was still raw. And yet, the following year, she found herself pregnant again. John whispered to her every night, "They'll return. You'll see." Florence dismissed it at first, but as the pregnancy grew, a strange certainty began to rise within her, too. When the doctor told them she was expecting twins, despite no family history of twins on either side, something in the air shifted. John wept. On October 4th, 1958, she gave birth to two identical twin girls, Gillian and Jennifer. The girls were healthy, pink, perfect. But as John held them, he noticed something that froze him. Jennifer had a small birthmark on her left hip, the same place Jacqueline had hers, and another faint mark on her forehead, exactly like Jacqueline's childhood scar. The family soon moved to a new home in Whitley Bay, hoping for a fresh start. The twins grew quickly, healthy and bright. But as soon as they began to walk and talk, the past began to seep through the walls. They loved dolls. They loved playing mothers and babies. Nothing unusual, until Florence realized that Gillian always played the older sister, giving quiet instructions, while Jennifer followed, eyes wide, waiting for cues. The same pattern, the same rhythm, the same invisible choreography as Joanna and Jacqueline. One afternoon, Florence opened a box she had kept hidden, the old toys that had belonged to the two lost daughters. She hadn't shown them to the twins before, yet as soon as the lid opened, both girls gasped. Jennifer reached in first, grabbing a small doll with missing shoes. "This was mine," she said. Gillian pointed to another. "That one's Joanna's." Florence felt the air go thin. The twins spoke of toys they had never seen before. They named them correctly. They described the house where the toys had once lived. The red carpet, the garden with a swing, details that belonged to a life they had never lived. John listened in silence, tears held behind his eyes. He had known. When the girls were 3, the family returned briefly to Hexham, the town where Joanna and Jacqueline had died. They drove through the narrow streets, quiet under the gray sky. Suddenly the twins began to cry out in excitement. "That's our school," they said, pointing to a building. They begged to go in, though they had never been there before. Later, they saw the park where the girls used to play and called it by name. They even found their way to the old house. Gillian recognized her bedroom window. Jennifer ran to the backyard and said, "This is where we played." Florence watched in silence. Every step the girls took felt like a memory unfolding from someone else's dream. As the twins grew, the memories continued in waves, small, sudden, precise. Jennifer once touched her forehead and said, "I got that from falling on a bucket." But she had never fallen, not once. It was Jacqueline who had. At age 3, the scar had remained for life. Sometimes the girls would talk about their other mother, about how she used to make them toast with jam, about the smell of her perfume, about the blue dress she wore on Sundays. Florence would stand, frozen, unable to breathe. They were too young to know these things. John began reading books about reincarnation. He wrote letters to priests, to scientists, to journalists. He wanted someone to listen, to explain, to believe. Some called it coincidence, others wishful thinking born of grief. But John didn't care. He saw the truth every morning in the faces of his daughters. The girls feared cars. Whenever one approached too quickly, they clung to Florence and cried, "The car is coming to get us." Florence would hold them until the panic passed. her own hands shaking. She couldn't forget the way the police had described that day years before, how the car had struck both children at once. Even in sleep, the twins would sometimes whisper the old names. Joanna, one murmured. Jacqueline, the other replied. By the time the twins turned 5, the memories began to fade, slowly, like chalk in the rain. They no longer spoke of the other house, the other mother, the road, the car. They became simply Gillian and Jennifer again. Two bright, ordinary girls with laughter that belonged entirely to the present. John accepted it with quiet reverence. He believed that the purpose of the return had been fulfilled, that the souls had completed what they came for. Florence remained cautious. She believed, but she did not speak of it often. Some memories, she thought, were not meant to be carried too long. Years later, when the twins were older, Gillian began to have flashes, brief, vivid images of places she'd never seen. A churchyard, a swing by a red brick wall, the old house in Hexham. She described it perfectly. A place she hadn't been since she was 1 year old. Florence listened, and in her heart, she knew. Even as adults, both women would recall moments that didn't belong to their own lives. Not fully, but the urgency was gone. Only the gentleness remained. Years later, researchers studying reincarnation visited the family. They recorded, documented, and debated. Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others called it the strongest evidence they had ever seen. But the truth of the Pollock twins was never about proof. It was about the strange, persistent ache of love. The way memory can bend time. The way loss refuses to be final. In the Pollock house, time did not travel in a straight line. It circled quietly. A small miracle, repeating itself in different hands, different voices. Sometimes when evening falls and the light turns amber, Florence still imagines she hears them. The old laughter, the old footsteps, but she no longer feels grief. She feels wonder, because maybe the heart doesn't move in one direction. Maybe it loops endlessly, carrying everything we have ever loved. And in that loop, two sisters, Joanna and Jacqueline, Gillian and Jennifer, are still walking hand in hand down a sunlit street that never ends.